Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tinker Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Greg Dowd, and tonight I have the privilege of getting to talk to Steve Poikonen. He is the host of Am Wakeup. He's got Slow News Day, Blunt Force Wisdom, some shows that he does. Am Wakeup, I got to say, best morning show on the internet, in my opinion. He's got an awesome network and community of like minded folks that are doing research to show the cartoonishness of our reality and finding solutions for folks who don't want to participate. He's a value for value practitioner. Welcome to the Tinker Tribe, Steve. Thanks for joining me, man.
Thank you, Greg. It is awesome to kick it. I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah, so I first got to hear about you from the Third Eye Carnival event that you guys put on in Nashville, and I learned about that through Scott Armstrong. He came
Heck
up
yeah.
there. I was like, Scott was talking about it on a Grand Theft World episode, and I wanted to go. I was like, this is right up my alley. You got comedians, you got music, camping. Like, I'm checking it out, man. So, uh, drove up there, and that was a really special event, Steve. Like, that was a really cool thing that you guys put on up there, and uh, I know that's something that you've been working on for quite a while. And before we go into that, though, let's. I kind of want to get your background a little bit. Like, what got you to the point where you wanted to start a show and you wanted to get your AM Wake Up and Slow News Day and all these other shows that you do going?
I have in the earlier days of the internet, I was doing like writing for a couple of different of online outlets and stuff like that, and I've had um, a yap on me for most of my natural born life. And the fella that's on the t-shirt right now, I got a hold of a copy of Behold a Pale Horse in like 94.
Oh,
And
wow.
I grew up with older friends who would guinea pig me on things, and then also take me to like Grateful Dead shows and punk rock shows and metal shows and stuff like that. And I would tell my parents that I was going camping or going to a friend's house for the night, or yeah. Eh, it was the late 80s and early 90s. They didn't really check in too much. And,
Yeah.
and so I got away with way too much way too early, and got exposed to way too much truth way too early, and it ruined me for life. As far as ever being a fully bought into member of society or the two-party illusion or anything like that. And my retirement from uh, engaging in capitalistic activities in various concert parking lots was to go work Renaissance festivals all around the country for a number of years. So
Oh,
I
wow.
really couldn't. I really couldn't sit in one place for too long for a long time until I had kids, and then I was like, "Oh, well, we're doing it now."
Yeah.
And the guy who kind of the only person that I would really say like mentored me in broadcasting always used to say, "Well, I took my retirement on the front end, and now I'm gonna work until I die." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's yeah, I did that." you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what that's great. I can rock with that philosophy. I already the front end's handled. Let's go do something. And so I don't know, about 7-8 years ago, something like that. I saw a huge lane in the independent media space for people who weren't coming at it from a purely partisan angle, were coming at it from much more of I don't trust the state because they're an illegitimate entity that only exists through theft, violence, extortion, and the threat of it. And we don't really have to listen to people that we didn't consent or give a vote for to have in office, because they don't represent us and they're never going to. They have a whole different set of other people that they're beholden to, and it ain't me and it ain't you. So and there was a big lane for that. So I was like, okay, well, I guess, since everybody and their mom has a podcast, let's go ahead and give it a shot. And very early on, I did a swap cast with Sam Tripoli, and that's probably the only reason that I have a show to this day.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I mean, it really do help. Yeah, Sam's helped me out a lot. So I give him a ton of credit, and Charlie Robinson too. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I know that you talk a lot about like kind of being connected with the comedians for a long time on your show. You've talked about the stand-up comedy being a part of your life, and I see, I really, that's what I really enjoy about watching your show and listening to it, is that you you're presenting information to people, but you're doing it in a lighthearted way, and you're bringing in all this comedy and stuff to kind of like a spoonful of sugar help the medicine go down a little bit, like that,
I'm a huge fan of old school radio and stuff like that, and I make no pretense that the show isn't trying to capture some of the Opie and Anthony spirit from back in the day and stuff like I want that to be a part of the conversation. It's what we do is basically O&A for people who see through the nonsense, and that's at least the intent of it is to have as much fun as possible with all of the crap that they're throwing at us, because we really do want to create the culture we want to live in instead of having to react to the culture that's been forced on us. So if we can catch it, turn it into funny, ridicule it, and go, look, these are a bunch of freaking nerds. They don't why are we listening to them in the first place? What they like? These people don't even know, the business end of a hammer or which way to turn a screwdriver. Like, why are we letting them dictate our future? It becomes a little bit more palatable for people down the road when they're like, oh yeah, no, that's right, I do pee standing up. Never mind, I was confused there for a minute, and thank you. I appreciate the reminder. No, it's okay. We're gonna go, we're going to fire our grocery store. We're going to fire our politicians, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really great, because a lot of this information is really heavy to digest, and a lot of times it can be delivered in, very matter of fact fashion. And it is great to me. I've got really into comedy because when you start to list, or when you start to learn a lot of this information, it can get pretty dark on you, and it can kind of weigh heavy on you. And that comedy kind of helps, lift you up, like you said, so that, when you're looking at all this kind of heavy stuff, you can see that the emperor has no clothes really, and it's really us giving them all the power. And, we can choose to do something different. We can, work together to build parallel things, and show that there's a different way, and getting that message across, I think really helps with the comedy and everything like that.
Well, and it's been done, and I still remember the first time that I heard George Carlin. I still remember the first time I heard Bill Hicks. I grew up hearing Richard Pryor albums and stuff like that, and it's been a fundamental part of my existence throughout my entire life. And I have over the course of 25 years or so been able to meet a whole bunch of different comics from all over the place, and dabbled before I had children, never really did anything with it because I still had to go to work like 6 days a week, all that kind of stuff. So it's one of those things where it's man, it's a huge core, comedy, music, stuff like that. That's why we do it at the events rather than do it like a conference or workshops or anything like that. No, man, I love stand-up comedy and I love music, and it brings people together, and everybody's part of a shared moment and energy and stuff like that you can't really capture at a conference event, or and you can't do it, you can't replicate it. So we're trying to make sure that people go have that feeling and then continue to have the conversations and network and go on to like create community wherever they're at.
Yeah, it's excellent, and you get to, speaking about networking, you get to bring on a lot of different guys. You have like T Snyder coming on, you got Ryan Christian coming on, Three Eyes, Three Ears. You guys do that stuff, and then you do like an independent review on Fridays of like all the news that went on through the week. How did you build and cultivate all those relationships with those guys to come on and be a part of your show?
It kind of all happens by like accident, or just it really does. Years ago, well, I mean, God, at this point, it's 7 or 8 years ago, I first had Ryan Christian on Slow News Day, and we developed a rapport and stuff like that. But when we got going with Am Wakeup, um, Pasta Craig Jardula, who was my co-host at the time, when I had Ryan come on, he was like, "You should come on every Tuesday. We can make a T-Lab Tuesday." And Ryan was like, "Okay." And so it's been 3.5 years of Ryan co-hosting the show with me every Tuesday. And that's just kind of how that happened. And I think it was like a 420 episode or something like that when his arm got twisted. And so he was amicable. He was.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and I mean, really, I consider at this point Ryan like a very good friend, and somebody that I trust as implicitly as I could. And I've been to his house. He'll come to my house when he comes out to the West Coast next year. But like it's a very very good thing. Um, Tease, who I'd known and collaborated with a bit over the years, hit me up specifically to be like, "Hey, how about if we do this thing on Wednesday and we do it a little bit different than the way that you do the show?" And that eventually turned into what the Third Eye Carnivals are today, was that
Oh,
Wednesday
really?
segment.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. T.
There was
Snyder is
that
probably,
collaboration with Tease.
yeah, no, dude, he's great, man. I love that guy.
I
I really
love you guys, watching you guys together, because you're like, it's like these is like the, he's like the kind of sitting there kind of like being like, I'm looking at all this information and editing and it's draining me, and then you're like, yeah, come on, man, it's gonna be okay. It's
We can
just so,
still turn it into a dick joke, buddy. It's all right.
yeah, it's
It's
like,
all right.
it's gonna be cool, we're having a good time here. Yeah. Yeah.
But he's perpetually in work mode, and my work mode is to make fun of things. So it's a very different dynamic.
Yeah, it works so great though. It's so great to watch. It's funny.
But no, dude, there's that. I mean, for a number of years, Texas Slim is on like a one-man mission now to turn ranching on its head. So he's on the road all the time. It's hard to get a hold of him. But Texas Slim from the Beef Initiative was on every Thursday for a couple of years too. And then whenever he could show up, and like that's been really cool. Charles Eisenears, he's freaking awesome. You don't rarely get a black Air Force veteran fish hippie who
Yeah, that does.
is like, I might be 5 minutes late this morning because I have to milk the cow before I come in and get on the interwebs.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's a rare combination of individual where I'm like, oh yeah, no, let's hang out. Let's let's do more shows together.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He's really good on the like he's bringing up the legal knowledge on things and all that kind of stuff. He's got a real depth of knowledge in that field, and Yeah, just his commentary on stuff that's going on too. It's just really good. Yeah.
No, he's fantastic, man. It's been interesting as heck, and very, very, real in a lot of moments, and very, very silly in a lot of moments, and whatever. And to kind of answer your question, the reason that there's a whole bunch of other shows on it, including Independent Review, Ryan Graham, who curates that show, is also my merch dude from Big Frog in Oregon. And so, these are his shirts. I sent him, but I sent him designs or whatever, and he makes it happen, and they're fantastic. And a couple of years ago, he just started something he called the Independent Review, which is basically curating content from people who don't usually get a lot of eyeballs in the more mainstream. And like up until that point, his entire YouTube channel was like, oh, we do custom screen printing, or oh, we do this, or oh, here's a little league team that's sporting our gear, and then all of a sudden it's like James Corbett and James Evan Pilato and Charlie Robinson, and so it took a very different turn. And I was like, well, rather than get you in trouble, let's air it on my channel where I'm constantly in trouble and not allowed on YouTube, and so it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just people that I find interesting, or I have like a personal friendship with, or something like that, if they're doing something and it needs more eyes on it, then I've got channels that people that once they get past the shadow banning look at. And up until the point that I left Rockfin, like I was absolutely stomping everybody over there. So there was a lot, and I say that out of love, because everybody that I don't compete with anybody, but it's, and everybody that was right up there in the top like 3 or 5, all very good personal real life friends of mine. So it ain't even like that. But the fact of the matter is, we were crushing it over there, and they turned into just giant freaking thieving pieces of garbage. And so on principle, I had to leave.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, you're totally banned off of YouTube. Like, I see your stuff on X, and I catch you on Rumble, but like, how's it been dealing with all that shadow banning, censorship, all that?
I've been demonetized on YouTube since 2019, and then like unable to post since 2021. Like everything that has been tried to get uploaded got yanked on the upload.
Yeah.
And so very good. But I was doing a whole lot of free speech activism and organizing around the Julian Assange case, 2018, 2019, into really 2022. And YouTube really hated that. They hated it. And the very first interview that Whitney Webb conducted about her original Mint Press article on Jeffrey Epstein was on my show before it, and YouTube really didn't like that either. And so
questioning the Epstein case.
Yeah, and this is in January 2019, something like that. And they really didn't like. So I talked a lot about rigged elections. I had a friend of mine who was on the ground when the Venezuelan embassy was sort of under siege back in 2019 during Trump's first term, and he sent goons to drag out activists and stuff like that. And there was like a 20-some day kind of standoff. But I was having like live on the ground coverage of that. They really didn't like that. So, I've managed to push myself into regions of the interwebs that are a lot. It's not that they're even difficult for people to access anymore, but YouTube is the mainstream. Everybody goes there. I go there dozens of times a day myself.
Yeah.
Not even gonna front.
That's where a lot of people are hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's where the central hub of media is, if not Twitter or Facebook or Instagram
Yeah.
or TikTok.
Right. Right. And then like even Rumble, right, is got what Peter Thiel is part of Rumble and all this stuff.
And
So
JD Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy and Dan Bongino originally, although you would assume he would have to divest a little bit if he's deputy director of the FBI. But yeah. Donald Trump Jr., heavy investor in Rumble. Yeah. And they froze our like count. They froze our likes the other day. I watched
really,
views go backwards.
you're starting to see some suppression
I
in
mean,
that.
for years now. For years now. I mean, because we'll talk about Peter Thiel and we'll talk about Elon Musk way before people were being critical of him and stuff like that. And all of the danger topics are really the only ones worth talking about. We love to have fun, so we'll do that too. But as far as the actual reporting goes, it's going to be the stuff that people typically don't find out about for weeks or months or years. And we're putting our necks out early and getting stomped on regularly for it, and that's the nature of it. If you didn't want to be doing it, you wouldn't go in every day.
Yeah, exactly. For being able to get this information out to people, which is very critical, I think, in the times that we're living in, to give people an awareness. So, what is really going on? That you gotta make some sacrifices, because it's. I've often said it's like, if you look around and you want to see a better world manifest, then you have to look at yourself, because nobody else is going to stand up and do it. So you're going to have to take the responsibility and do something, especially if you have the information, you need to be able to get it out there. You could tell like 2 or 3 people, but we have this tool available to us, so we can get it out to more people now.
Yeah, and I feel like there's such a draw to become part of this mainstream alternative media for a lot of people that in an era where conspiracy is kind of cool, or has been for a couple of years, it's a lot of people who really truly do understand how to work the algorithm,
Yeah.
and understand how that end of it works, that can go, oh, okay, well, there's a massive body of research here that I could just pluck from, make it sound like it's mine, and then bam, I'm crushing it. And like, that's how music works. That's how everything kind of works that way. So I'm not really like hating on the practice, but it does dilute the product immensely.
Hmm.
And that ultimately does have consequences.
Hmm. Do you think that some of these folks, like, they're tuning in to guys like you and like Richard Grove and all those guys to get some of their information? Whitney Webb, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you see, uh, you like our jokes, Ryan Christian's breakdowns, Whitney's unlimited hangout in general, their research, uh,
James Corbett.
Corbett's prognosticism from a decade ago or 15 years ago. That kind of stuff. You see that repackaged and delivered all the time. Great. Glad it's getting out there on the one hand. Derek Bros is often mimicked, you know,
Yeah.
and we know for a fact that there are plenty of people throughout the independent media that will quote us on the one hand, and then like shit on us whenever any of us get mentioned. And so that's part of it. This is it, and it kind of sucks that it is, but it is a business, and people are going to be cutthroats, and people are going to, engage in the exact same behaviors that they engage in any business, be it entertainment or actual journalism, media, whatever. Computers, freaking silicon chips, stuff like that, dude. It's cutthroat. We're fortunate in that most of the stuff that we have to deal with isn't brutal, but like Ryan's had to deal with lawfare on a couple of frivolous lawsuits. I've had
Yeah, I've
uh,
heard him talking
a
about that.
vehicle
Yeah.
burned down in the driveway. There's people that have
Wow.
had and avoided death threats. Like it does get really weird. Um, which is a reason that I think a couple of prominent people in the mainstream alternative that have been very, very critical of the last couple of years of what's been happening in the Middle East, that have tried to distance themselves severely from anything having to do with one particular government and Charlie Kirk's assassination. And they're on Patrick Bet David talking about it, or they're yelling at Max Blumenthal about it. It's, very, very obvious that nobody wants to be next as far as that goes in the never ending wheel of psyops.
You can't joke about Israel, man. It's 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 like Voldemort. You can't speak their name, and yeah, I've noticed that as well on some of these bigger talking heads that are on the internet. Like they don't want to get close to that, and you're probably closer to the story than I am. I haven't been keeping up with everything. I've been attempting to keep up on all the stuff that's been going on with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But what do you think's going on there, according to what you've seen so far? It might still be too early to like really pin anything down yet, but
Yeah, I think that anybody who is peddling certainty about this is lying for money or because they've been told to lie for it. It's um the official narrative is absolute trash. There's no way any reasonable human being capable of a modicum of critical thinking would listen to what the FBI has had to say about this and go, oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. All of it. It all makes it. That tracks. Yeah, of course, 22-year-olds talk like they're writing letters to their sweetheart from the Civil War. Yes, all 22-year-olds communicate that. They also all refer to a car as a vehicle. I
an
entered or exited the vehicle. That's cop talk, man. Yeah, like, and I know that it's default language for cops, but it's not default language for a 22-year-old, trans furry adjacent freaking what bullet etcher. They don't talk like that. They don't. And so when the official narrative doesn't make any sense, and then all of the other explanations, you're like, okay, well, yeah, I can see that, but yeah, I can see that, but then basically the only reasonable conclusion you can come to is that, okay, well, there's parts of this that were staged managed. There's parts of this that we're just deliberately being lied to about. There's elements that make sense depending on which angle of approach you're taking, but there's no full and complete picture, which is where we're usually left with most major, if not paradigm changing events, then events that at least lead to the kind of crackdown on civil liberties and rights and basic freedoms that we've experienced every time there's an event of consequence like this.
Yeah, it's always the Hegelian dialectic, right? You just problem reaction solution. It's like the oldest trick to play, and come in with the preordained solution and be like, all right, well, now we need more surveillance on everybody, and we gotta amp up all this technocracy stuff, and don't worry about the man behind the screen there. It's okay. Or yeah,
Right. And oh, by the way, it looks like the Daily Wire is completely moving in on the single largest conservative campus-based organization in, the US history. And I'm sure that's just a happy little coincidence. Yeah. Boy, are they lucky. Didn't even take Bibby's reported $150 million. Just took a million bucks from the Daily Wire. And you got Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, and Ben Shapiro hosting the show now. The Charlie Kirk, which they still call the Charlie Kirk Show. Sorry to cut you off.
The turning point thing. Are they taking?
Yeah.
They're totally taking over the turning point.
They've been hosting the Charlie Kirk Show with his producer buddy, whose name is currently escaping me. But yeah, he was I don't know. It's kind of mind boggling, the audacity that it takes to just be like, yeah, no, these are our chairs now. Well, I guess they were promised to us 3,000 years ago. Yeah, I don't know. They look comfy. We're gonna stay here.
Well, yeah, you were covering a story recently about all these flock camera systems. What's going on with all that? Like, what are these flock camera things? What are they doing? Like, what's going on?
The flock cameras themselves, as a standalone thing, are automatic license plate readers. So they're set up to take real-time pictures of every vehicle traveling in one direction on a road. There's almost always an adjacent flock camera on the opposite side of the street or the road that's doing the exact same thing. In the case of like major bridges, stuff like that, there's usually two on each end. And what they do is feed into city, county, state, sheriff, federal databases, real-time information on every single individual that is traveling wherever their image can be recorded. In major metropolitan areas, they're all over the place. It is a massive invasion of privacy because they don't just take pictures of the license plate. They take pictures of a straight on view of you in the vehicle. They can be accessed by anyone with the login from any law enforcement agency, any intelligence agency, whether or not it's domestic or foreign. Number of foreign intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies that can access these. And it's estimated that there are around or over about 100,000 of these in the US alone. So we definitely try to make people aware of them. There are a couple of really good websites where you can upload and update a gathering database of where these are. It is highly illegal to avoid them in terms of, I guess covering or disguising your license plate, although I wouldn't blame you.
Yeah.
But it is just a massively intrusive, and they don't have an ROI. In fact, there's out of all of the images that they've taken over the years with these cameras, less than 2.5% of them have resulted in any kind of arrest or conviction. It's strictly for surveillance. And if you're in an area where there's a lot of them, along with all of the traffic cameras, along with all of the exterior security cameras on every business and every bank camera. It just, keep going down the list in your head of how many times a day your picture is getting taken, logged, and then stored or put up for sale. It should have you going, what are we doing here? What? How? Why? Who signed it? Did anybody vote for this? I don't remember anybody voting for this. If you want to pretend in the marketing, like, hey, aren't we supposed to have a say in this? Like, even if you don't want to go into government is an illegitimate entity, by the book, by the marketing, nobody agreed to do this. Nobody voted on it. There was never any public hearing about it. And in the places where the public has become aware of it and said, no, we want these gone, there have been a couple of communities that have had them removed.
Yeah.
So it is possible to get rid of these if you don't want to go the United Kingdom way with the Blade Runners and just grab a sawzall or perhaps a die grinder or something like that. And I'm not suggesting you do this because that is a crime, but you would want to go down towards the base in a clockwise fashion. You did that, trying to maintain your parallel axis so that you meet back where you started.
Yeah, I've been thinking about a lot of how we be proactive more on the rollout of all this technocracy and surveillance and all this stuff that's rolling out. And I think we have to become even more capable as people and have even more skills to understand some of these technologies and how to mitigate their use on everyone, like you said, to just totally surveil us all the time, and have these discussions about how you can be proactive against some of this technology.
Yeah, I mean, if you live in a small enough town, municipality, something like that, it is a lot easier to go up against your city council or whatever, whoever signed off on it. Again, I'm not encouraging vandalism, although it works. I'm not encouraging it, but just in general, striking up conversations with people when you're just out and about. Hey, do you know what that is? Hey, do you remember that being there? Hey, do you remember a month ago when we were driving around and we rolled over those little traffic counter, wires? Remember that? Now there's a new camera there. What's that about?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Like, at least get people thinking about it to the point to where if they start to see, hey, we'd like to address, the suits down at their council meeting about this, people who are even marginally curious and be like, huh. And again, this helps if you're in a small community, but it really does go a long way. Just a little bit of like supermarket or coffee shop chatter, can start a whole bunch of that. If you actually do a whole thing about it, you can get enough people who are used to going to board of supervisors, city council, whatever, and getting loud about it, and become a thorn in their side. It's whatever you can do to stop the gears. That's what all of this ultimately comes to. While you're doing that, you certainly want to have an eye towards parallel systems, parallel communities, counter economics, stuff like that. You want to make sure that you're developing relationships with people, as close to you as possible, that grow and produce the food that you're not. And all of these things are steps away from tyranny. And they're things that are becoming more and more difficult to do, which makes them more and more necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, like how do you approach people like that aren't necessarily like listening to your show or like when you're just out and about striking up conversations with people, how do you present? Do you attempt to present some information to them,
Yeah, I
or
mean, it really depends. Like, I have a really cute dog,
yeah,
so that's an icebreaker. The fucking adorable pit bull with a giant head, and he's very, very friendly.
Gomez?
And so, yeah, and so like he dispels myths about pit bulls in general, and a lot of that is a way to open up. Or, I mean, you're inundated with news almost everywhere you go. There's a screen in a building that has up to date whatever propaganda outlet, and so
Da, da,
you can
da,
always just
da,
point. you know I don't go to like sports bars or anything like that at this point in my life, but it's also very easy to strike up conversation with anybody in the midst of hanging out and drinking and bullshit. And so there's always an in. I usually crack jokes, but
yeah,
I'll pepper that with bloodline pedophiles, or whatever it is. And you can kind of see somebody spark up a little bit when you hit a couple of keywords, and they're like, oh, okay, you're not just this isn't about the weather.
yeah, yeah. Do you get like positive responses from people, like where they want to maybe ask a little bit more questions, or is it just like you start presenting the information and they're just like put up their walls and they're like, well, this guy's kind of wacky?
It really depends, man. I don't really like go, you know, deep into it in casual settings. If it's like 10:30 at night and there's a campfire or something like that, then it's a little bit different. And if you get into some sort of debate or argument about it, at least you know that you come armed with a set of facts and a whole bunch of research that you can point to, and you can always just, okay, look, you're coming at me emotionally. I'm telling you not to listen to me. I'm telling you to listen to the people who have been putting it out there. I'm quoting. What happened there? Okay. Yeah, I'm quoting. I'm not giving you my opinion, you know. And that's it's a
Hey,
very, very different conversation when you're willing to cede your opinion or ego or whatever, and just be like, no, this ain't me saying it. It's the people that you listen to, the people that you believe have said it. It's not, it's not coming from me. You're just hearing me say it. So let's have a conversation about what was actually said rather than it's me saying it.
yeah, I've found that that can be helpful in conversations is when you get to a point where you can maybe have a little bit of debate on an issue to throw out a book reference or something like that. I know when I listen to y'all's podcast and you and Tease together, and Tease throws out all those book recommendations, I'm always like, well, let me grab some of those book recommendations there, because that's a really good way of uh, opening up to some different ideas or some different ways of looking at things and diving further into information. But it seems like a lot of people don't really have time to read. I know in my own life that I work a day job and then doing this stuff on the side and working on a piece of property and stuff. So I don't have as much time to read as I used to, but I really enjoy reading, and I've got a library of books, and I'll get to them. But yeah, it's tough to sit down and take the time to read something. But it's super important. I feel like the times that we're moving into and all the suppression with everything, that we're kind of going back to a time where, and I think this is good that we're getting more of these meetups and stuff happening where people can coalesce and share ideas and meet in the meet space and develop the sneaker net, so they say. Kind of getting the word out by having meetups. I know you've been doing some local meetups. How have those been working out?
Really fun, man. They've always been a blast. Started doing those in 2023, which I guess is the same year we started the carnivals too. And it's a idea that I happily, piggybacked off of from No Agenda, because they've been doing meetups for years and years and years. And I was like, well, we have enough people that live sort of where I do that we could make, if it's half a dozen people, great. There's been upwards of 20 a couple of times. It's not something we do with enough consistency to like build uh, a, a core group of 30 to 50, but it's in the works. And always encourage everybody who listens to either go and be a part of like another, not necessarily mainstream meetup, and then invite those people to, be part of the show, be part of the chat, Telegram group, stuff like that. And then, do spin off meetups around that too. And we got to do this in person. It can't just all be on screen. You have to, if you want to live in a world where it is a higher trust society instead of the one that we currently live in, got to be able to look somebody in the eye, shake their hand, and develop an in-person peer-to-peer relationship with them. So that's why we had the urgency coming out of lockdown to do this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
because people really did get too comfortable being isolated, and that's not okay.
Yeah, I agree. And there is, even if you are like a super introverted person, you still crave that social interaction, I believe. I mean, for me, I consider myself like naturally an introvert, but going to these events and getting to talk to like-minded people, and you realize that I'm not the only one thinking this way, and that you have people around you that you can connect with, like that makes such a big difference, man. It's made such a big difference in my life by starting a little freedom cell group. And we meet once a month, and plans on making that, finding more events and stuff to do between here and there, and helping each other with projects and stuff. It's made such a big difference in my life, man. i
Heck yeah.
i really recommend people, getting outside of your comfort zone a little bit, getting off the internet, and meeting people in real life. There's really nothing like it. Like, you're gonna get energized by those like-minded people.
Yeah, and that's also why we have like such a heavy focus on either live music or live comedy or both or whatever, because again, like it's hard to be in a bad mood after that, and you're generally more inclined to talk to people that you just shared a really cool experience with when you're on that level. And so I would much rather have people, in a festive mood while we're doing it, because I know who listens to the show. I've met a bunch of them. It's I don't even know if there's such thing really is like introvert and extrovert, but there's people who are way more selective about who they share their time and their energy and their spirit with, and people who are way more loose about that. And we've just kind of settled on these names for it, because you're right, man. Introverts don't want to be by themselves all the time, appreciate a social dynamic. There's a line from the movie Clerks where it's a back and forth between Dante and Randall, and Dante's like, what, they're talking about crashing a funeral, and Dante's like, we hate people, and Randall goes, yeah, but I love gatherings. And that's, I get it, I do.
Yeah.
I've gone to places where there are, hundreds of thousands of people, and I'm like super uncomfortable, except for I'm with a few people that, I love and appreciate, and, meeting a couple of people too along the way. But like, we're in our own little isolated world in the midst of that chaos, and I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like I'm 47, dude. I'm not getting in the pit. I'm not.
You're not getting in the pit anymore?
It's not happening.
Yeah. Might come out with a broken rib or something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. That sounds painful. I'd rather avoid that.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, I'm not, I have a much more selective about, where my time and energy, like spiritual resources go. And yeah, I understand everybody with that mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you do the in person meetups and stuff like that, I know this is something we fortunately haven't come across. But have you ever had like any sketchy people show up that like maybe they're not invited to the next barbecue or something like that?
I mean, the people who tried to cancel us because they thought we were like Nazis or whatever, yeah, they can't come back next year. But as far as people but they were, that was a whole separate thing, and they weren't attached to the carnival or there for the carnival. So, no, it's been awesome. As far as everybody that's come through, we've never had a problem. We've never had anybody get out of line. There's been unofficial security, but we haven't had to call in the local motorcycle clubs yet. It's been pretty chill as far as that goes, and I want it to continue to be that way. They're designed to be like not huge on purpose. And we'd rather replicate that all over the place than try to scale it up, because that's where you start to get the problems. Like the people who want to be there show up. And they show up with, great attitudes and open minds and like just really stoked to be there. We try to give them the best, show that we possibly can in return, and and meet everybody and hang out, bullshit, and all that kind of stuff. And so it's more of a, I don't know, more of a family get together than it is like, this is some corporate event that's had the soul sucked out of it and replaced with, people in suits and PowerPoint presentations and stuff like that. But yeah, trying to avoid all that.
Yeah, it really felt like that when I went out to the event in Tennessee, and everybody was helping each other out, trying to get unstuck from the mud because it rained quite a bit, and just helping in uh, any way they could with things that needed to get done at the event, and just the, being able to line up like Triple E and Leonardo and all you guys are really good musicians too. Like you guys all play different instruments, and yeah, you got to show me some of your instruments while I was out there, and you've been playing for quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah, on and off for a long time. Been in a couple of bands and stuff like that. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, I do. Like I said, man, live comedy and live music. These are a few of my favorite things, and yeah, I want to. All of this happens on screen, man. And I don't come from that era. you know, like
Yeah,
I want to be able to hang out in person. I want to be able to have the ability, because we still have so many talented people who make such incredible music across genres, and it's very rarely do people even get exposed to that, even if they're kind of looking for it. And then on top of that, you never get cross spectrum representation in one spot.
right.
And I really like, there's something for everybody, regardless of what your particular taste in music is. We probably got somebody doing it, unless you only listen to Icelandic throat singers, and then we're probably not going to be able to deliver on that.
Yeah, yeah. So how do these events come together? Did you have any like help on throwing? I know it was several of you guys that put the one on in Tennessee, and I know you've been doing one out in Colorado. and you recently have one coming up in Texas. Like, how do you get the people involved with that, and like, how do you get it all organized and ready to go for showtime?
We've always had help. There's always been a bunch of people that have stepped up and put in massive amounts of effort to make it possible. We wouldn't be able to do the one in Colorado that we did for the third time this year without the owner of the Blowback Gallery, which is where we have it, Jeff Medine, Angela Anderson, who you can't see it the way the camera is, but she does the
The
calendars and like
the
all of the
Marmot lady?
marmot related artwork and stuff like that. She lives in Pueblo. She made the connection between the show, me and Tease, and the Third Eye possible with Jeff. In Tennessee, Scott Armstrong was in I think a medical freedom group with the property owner and pitched it to her, and she was like, yeah, that sounds great. So that's how we got that space, and a whole bunch of people came together to make that possible. Same thing in El Paso, like, because we've told everybody from day one we want to do these everywhere. So if you know a patch of dirt or a building that'll have us, that let's get on the phone together or whatever, and start talking about how we can make it happen. And so that's how the El Paso thing happened. Rachel, Tinfoil Hat Girl, who's in the chat and stuff like that, she really stepped up and like made all of what's going on in El Paso possible. Had a bunch of local contacts. She's a local business owner there, knew all the right people to call and what strings to pull and stuff. That's the only way this thing is possible. And it's the only way that it's probably ever going to be possible. And so it really is like an exercise in community building,
Yeah.
network, and panic attacks and whatever. But but I mean, it's the whole thing has been awesome, but start to finish.
Yeah, do you get stressed about the events,
Of
like,
course, man.
because
Yeah.
you're the kind of the face of them?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, trying to wrangle feral cats to get everybody on board to be where you need to be. And but we haven't had to deal with like, I'm famous, so you need to do, we'd never had to deal with that. Like, there's a whole bunch of, by staying small, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we don't have to deal with. And I love that aspect of it,
Yeah.
because it really has been like me calling up my friends, or, using my friends to bully other people to show up. And that's where you get like a Leonardo Joni at Third Eye playing a barn for a bunch of weirdo freaks. Like Kurt Metzger just randomly dropping in.
That was wild. Yeah,
Tennessee.
that was wild.
Yeah. And that's Pasta, who found out that Kurt was playing Zanies in Nashville that weekend. So he was like, oh, well, if you're gonna be here,
Yeah.
why don't you come hang out for a little bit? And we threw him on the panel and fed him full of White Claws, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, how did you get that relationship started with Kurt? Because I know he mentions you in a lot of his stuff, and that you guys have kind of developed a relationship, and he gets to, I guess he gets to pick your brain about a bunch of stuff. How did you guys get to know each other?
When we were doing Am Wakeup in Vegas, he came on as a guest a couple of times, and he's friends with Tripoli, who's a very good friend of mine, and Pasta, who was co-hosting the show, was good friends with another comic who's in that same circle, Brett Ernst, and we were hanging out with Ernst a lot. So just kind of like really repetition. And then when we, moved out of Vegas, I still had Kurt on for a number of subsequent episodes. And then when he moved to Austin, he was like, I can't wake up in time for your show, dude. I can't. Again, like I'll catch you at 9:40 or something like that, but I'm not. That's not my schedule now. I'm like, okay, dude, but we we used to talk a couple of times a week and stuff like that, and it's just over the course of I don't know 3 years or so, I just keep bullshitting and also his booker now is another friend of mine who does Tripoli's booking and a fantastic show in his own right called My Family Thinks I'm Crazy at Mark Steves. We've been friends and collaborators for 6 7 years or something like that at this point. And so it's just kind of the semi incestual relationship of how this whole thing works. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. Um, yeah, man, I hear you talking a lot about like building the parallel systems and all that kind of stuff. Did you come to that realization? Like, when did you come to that realization that we got to like build alternatives um, and take actions and start working in that direction?
I mean, pretty early on in moving towards adulthood, I did have the good fortune of being able to travel a lot,
Hmm.
um, and so I got to all over the country and a couple of different foreign countries and stuff like that before I even got out of high school, and I was like, oh, it's really not. This isn't the only system that exists. This isn't the only one. And there's others that, work with problems, and there's others that are really bad. But the main problem that I could see was that there was always a third party in the middle of every interaction, and they had one hand in both people's pockets
Mm.
while that interaction was taking place. And I was the government. And I was like, well, that's obviously we found the problem.
Yeah.
And then I had a whole bunch of people in my life tell me that I was crazy for thinking that, you know.
Yeah.
And so as a result, instead of doing like, you know, trade school or work or college or any of that stuff, I went all over the place for a number of years and um, was a part of, I guess, well, at least the FBI considers it organized homeless in terms of, Renaissance festivals or Grateful Dead parking lots or widespread panic party or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's a coordinated network of people who don't have permanent addresses. And
That is fascinating. Like, I went to one of those rainbow gathering things, and it's almost like
oh, sorry.
maybe I went to experience it because I was like hearing about it and everything, and I was like, well, that might be interesting to go check out. But it seems like there's enough of those events going on to where you can kind of just travel around and just kind of do these things and kind of live a different kind of life.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't. At least with uh, you know being permanently on tour as as far as that goes, or like Renaissance festivals, like you needed skills and you were constantly working, and there was a definite you haven't dropping out of society doesn't mean you just hang out on the beach all day and wait for people to bring you food or little
Right.
beverages with the umbrella in it. Like you actually have to go do stuff and
Awesome.
prove that you're capable of maintaining your spot or your status within this sub community or whatever it is. And that was cool. I did a whole lot of carpentry when I was doing Renaissance festivals and stuff, and when I had to like get off the road and stay put and raise kids and stuff, it just transferred naturally. But I still, it was like always under the table or off book kind of stuff. It wasn't like I'm working
Signing
for
a W-2 or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, independent contractor.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
So it's never really been like, never been able to go all the way in as far into whatever, Matrix world or whatever you want to call it.
yeah. What's the beef between the Renaissance Festival guys and the carnies? What's the
Well, okay, so it stems. The joke is Rennies will always have better teeth and better drugs. But it mainly because the most Renaissance festival sites are permanent structures that stay up all year round, and when you go to do one of those, it's like an 8 to 10 week thing. Whereas a carnival, you breeze in, you build a bunch of unsafe stuff, you put a bunch of career criminals in charge of it, and then you breeze out of town before anybody can really figure out which one of you bedded their daughter, son, or goat. And so it's just there's a disparity and a rivalry that's been held for a very long time. Yeah.
Oh man.
No offense to anybody who was a carny who may be watching. It's just we're superior. That's all. I mean, it's not your fault that you chose a different path in life. I'm sure the judge or your probation officer or somebody like that had a part to play in it. So I'm not here to judge. I'm not. No.
Yeah. So yeah, these tell me more about the big vision behind the Third Eye Carnival is like just replicating them as many places as you can possible and getting people to host them in their local areas and making it fun for people so that we're remembering to have fun and stuff like that.
So the original plan a few years ago was just to encourage various audiences to have a couple of people over and watch the series that Tease has put together over the years called Conspiracy Synergy. And it's, a not necessarily, it's an accelerated slow walk into, having a ground floor understanding of all of the different things that we're facing and what that means and all that kind of stuff. And we realized very quickly that nobody was going to do that. We were like, well, I guess we have to then.
Yeah.
So we cobbled together with Angela's help and Jeff's help, Charlie Robinson's help, Lindsay Sharman from Rogueways. They all made the first Third Eye happen. And then we were like, okay, well, we should run this back, but and there were a whole bunch of bands that played too. The Drew and Marie from Spiderland, very integral in the process, and they played in Tennessee as well. They happened to be out in Nashville during that time, and so they got together. I don't think they've missed one yet, Spiderland, and it turned into, well, it's still kind of evolving, but turned into what it currently is, which is us recognizing the need coming out of lockdown that people really needed to get together, really needed to have an environment where they wouldn't feel like I'm the only person here, which is how so many people in the truth community are kind of programmed into thinking. Like you may have an online community, but in your reality, especially if you're just going to work and then going home, or maybe going to dinner with like one or two people that you already know and have known for a number of years and you can talk to, your circle isn't expanding that way. And you don't realize how many people in your community think along the same lines, have similar goals, have similar values, and want to connect with people who are like-minded. So that's why we want to do it in as many places as possible, because ultimately it is a local gig. We're just putting it on.
Yeah.
And so we, as much as possible, really lean into putting local bands front and center when we're doing this. Not just in the hopes that they'll bring their audience and their audience will cross-pollinate with the podcast audience, which is what we want. And we want those conversations to take place. But so that the podcast audience can also go, oh, that's right, there's still a local music scene. And I can go and support those guys. And I can leave my house and I can go track down good bands that are doing good things. And it's, just a remembering on both counts of the way that we used to be able to go out, have fun, communicate, have wild conversations, maybe cut loose a little bit, and then go and build from that. Not go, oh, okay, well, I got my chakras realigned at Burning Man. Now I'm going to go back to my $835,000 a year corporate gig where I, push people out of their native homes and lands and villages and third world countries because that's how we get our sweet, sweet rare earth minerals. Like it's a different vibe that we're going for.
Yeah. It is such like a oxymoronic thing. Like you pay all this money to go to this one thing out in the desert to have some spiritual experience or something like that, and then it's just like you said, it's just maybe all the wrong people for all the wrong reasons.
Have you ever been to a Burning Man?
I've never been to one. I've had a buddy that went to one and met a girl, and we got married to her and moved out of the country, and then
okay,
and then that all fell apart. But
okay,
but yeah, I mean, he said it was really interesting, but
definitely interesting.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, like, maybe you don't consider. I don't know what does being like kind of a figurehead for doing these kind of things, like being as like kind of a leader, like what does it mean to you to like be a leader, and how do you go about that, like with organizing people and getting people to work together? And
show up, be on time, have a good attitude. Don't ask anybody to do anything that you wouldn't do or haven't done. Understand that everybody that's there is an integral part of what's happening. So treat them like they are. Don't expect anybody to do anything that you're not willing to, like that kind of stuff, man. I've had a couple of really good bosses in my whole carpentry and construction career, and some really bad ones too. And there's I'm still learning how to navigate like some of the more like business end styles of it, because that's never been me. And it's just nothing that I even really wanted to be a part of as far as that goes, man. But I don't know, dude. It's really important to me to express that there might be like a handful of us that do have a final say in this, but because of the nature of the gigs, you're kind of supposed to grab it and run with it. Like there's ways where we'll be like, okay, well, this is what a Third Eye Carnival is, and this is different from that, and like we're trying to keep it within the framework of this, and if it drifts over here, then we that's not something that we're necessarily comfortable with. We'll give it a shot or whatever, but not a part of the format. And that's about the extent of it. You hope you never have to like get it to a heated place or anything like that. We really haven't. I don't, as long as it's staying small, I don't expect it to, because the demands from everybody as far as like permits or porta potties or insurance or whatever, very low as far as that goes. Still adds up, still a part of the overall cost, but it's not like we have to shell out freaking $200,000 on an insurance policy to do it.
Oh,
So, keeping it simple, not pushing anybody past what they're capable of in terms of skill set, being able to kind of like read the room and see who's going to be good at what and how they're going to fit in. That helps, but I don't know if that's learned or inherent. I really don't. It's something that you gain with a lot of experience and dealing with a bunch of different personalities and people, for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, like trying to be able to, have a very, very simple workable system that people, no matter what town you're doing it in, can, plug their skill sets into. Like that's key, but you can't overcomplicate it, then it falls apart.
Just keep it real simple, and then find the people that can help facilitate that thing in your local area.
And more often than not, if they're already part of the overall community, they're going to recognize that they're uniquely suited for that. And even if the upfront end of it is out of their wheelhouse, like they still know they're capable. So at that point, all you really have to do is, be encouraging and just sort of, point in the general direction. And most people, given the opportunity, are up and running with that. And I love that. It's like my favorite thing about it.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for growth as well, I think. And in my life, a lot of the times I would struggle with wanting to have something be like the perfect thing the first time, but then realizing it's like that does not exist. It will never exist. And a lot of times you have to just do it and figure it out and get better the next time you do it.
And sometimes there are tornadoes. Sometimes there are.
It was not the craziest weather that I've ever been in for camping, but I remember talking to the lady that was hosting the event, and she was all concerned about the people sleeping in their tents and everything like that. And I was like, this isn't the worst storm I've been in before, so I'll be all right.
Pretty hardy bunch that was camping out there, for sure. For sure. No, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's a memory that I'll never forget, man. So these events are really something special. So I
I
would
hope so.
encourage,
Thank you, man.
I would encourage everybody to go find a Third Eye Carnival if it's in your area, and go attend. Like, you're not gonna regret it, and you're gonna make so many good connections with the like-minded people when you go. It'll be definitely worth your while.
And if you just happen to be sitting on a couple of acres, or somebody with a venue or something like that, and we can do a Third Eye Carnival there, please do reach out and let me know, because I'm not joking. Like, I want to do these. I want so many of them that I can't personally attend. You know what I mean?
Well, we may be talking, Steve, because I might be able to host one at my. I've got a 4.5 acre property in Alabama that I've
Heck
been
yeah.
working on developing. It's still a ways till I could host some folks there, but I'm getting pretty close to maybe being able to host a small event out there.
Heck
So
yeah, dude. I'd love a Third Eye Alabama.
yeah, we it's not the scene out of Deliverance here. It's pretty good.
And that's okay too. That's okay too.
Yep. But yeah, man, I really appreciate everything that you do with the show. And like I said, the comedy aspect, like I don't catch a ton of well, I mean, I just relate so much to that aspect of it, and the comedy, and it just helps so much, being able to get this information, but be able to make light of it instead of going down a dark place with some of the information.
I mean, really, when you think about it, these are some of like the physically weakest, most inbred, least sociable goons that you could possibly imagine. So why shouldn't we be making fun of them? And that's the one thing that these guys really can't stand. They can't stand to have all of their just nonsense dragged out into the daylight and people being like, you clown. No, no, I'm not going to do that. No. Really? Okay, because, the sheriff is a kid that I grew up with and we played baseball together. So I'm pretty sure, you know, like just because ain't gonna be a good enough reason and stuff like that. Like that's the mentality that we need to have. We need to adopt. It's the one that we try to bring as often as possible, not just to the shows but to the live events, and just the way that we're carrying ourselves through life. I think it's critical because I'm not gonna be stomped out by Bill Gates and his bitch tits. That's not gonna happen. you know I refuse.
Yeah, that's a good point. These people only have the power that we give them, really. Like, we're giving them the power and the energy and the support by, what we're spending our money on, what we're choosing to do with our time, the entertainment that we watch. Like, we give them the energy that they use to enslave us. So, um, once you can figure that out, like you said, they're not very strong. They're not very creative people. They just are. Uh, they just rely on the fact that people want to stay comfortable, and they'll just continue to be creatures of habit
Mm-hmm.
and continue along their path as not questioning the narratives on things. So if you can really start critically thinking, I is one of the first components. Think for yourself and begin to question a lot of things and really dive into stuff without believing the first thing that you're told, especially on the mainstream propaganda. That you can start working together with people and just start something. And it's not going to be perfect, and you just gotta continue to evolve it over time.
It doesn't have to be perfect. And just about every interaction that every human being has exists in an anarchistic context, in that, when you go to work, there's nobody threatening you with a monopoly on violence to do the work. You're doing the work because you got hired for this job and you're getting paid for it, and you're going to take that money and you're going to feed your family and pay your bills and stuff like that. And if you don't get along with a coworker, there's nobody forcing you to hang out with them. Every interaction that you have in public, hardly ever is there, a threat of or inherent violence in these interactions. It's only when you involve government where that becomes a part of the reality. And I think that because every market abhors volatility, if we can create our own markets that are stable and then show other people that you're capable of living life without the boot of the state on your neck at all times, that's going to become inherently more attractive. So that's ultimately like what we're trying to get across at any given moment.
Yeah, yeah. I have a similar vision myself. Is that you know we can talk till we're blue in the face, but really we have to be the people that are demonstrating this alternative and just living the way that we want to see the world happen and manifest itself. And it's possible, and if we're good enough at it and we're a good enough example, then people want to emulate that and start moving in that direction, because they see that the system, while I'm plugged into the system, I'm just continuing to suffer, and the suffering's getting worse. But I see these people over there, they're having a good time. They seem to be really healthy and vibrant and have really good energy, and I'd like to have some of that.
Yeah, yeah. And I come, that you do too. I'm just come from the era of, well, don't talk about it, be about it. So if you're not willing to do that, then it really is just a circular conversation or something that you're doing for your own like intellectual masturbatory entertainment, and that's fun as a checkout, but it shouldn't be life. And so we're trying to remind people what life was like before all of these clowns got their little talons a hold of every aspect of society. Yeah, screw all that, man. I'd rather not.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a long time to because I grew up without having the internet and all that kind of stuff, and then later in my life, and getting the I was a cubicle critter or sitting in front of a desk at a desk job for a while, and then I realized like this is not the life I want to be living, man. Like we're not meant to be inside and be in front of a computer screen all the time, and like this is not how we should be living. And so, I moved to attempt to be an example and start doing stuff and showing people that an alternative is possible.
Heck
But
yeah.
it did take me going to a pretty low point to get to there.
Yeah.
It took me a bit of suffering in internally to be like, this is not the life for me. I need to do something different.
I mean, yeah, I think everybody, I mean, unless you're just born Amish, you know, there
Yeah.
you kind of have to go through that. And there's never going to be anybody that's at the exact same spot as you are on whatever path that you're going. And it is important to like maintain grace for the people who aren't where you are. But at the same time, like it's, it's always, comfort is always being pushed on us as the thing that's going to make us acquiesce, you know. And I'm not saying that you can't live life comfortably. I'm not saying that you can't like find ways to relax, or that I call it dumping out your brain. It's something I try to do like every night, where I
Yeah.
can't go to bed with all of the stuff that I talked about all day, you know.
Right.
and,
Right.
and so I try to like make it a practice to unburden my mind of that, at least to grab a couple hours of shut eye. But what it does mean is like you're you're done playing a rigged game that was only and always meant for you to suffer in, and you can feel good about that, and you can be aware of the fact that yes, there are bad people who want to do bad things to you, but you don't have to become a bad person in order to participate in any of that nonsense.
That's critical, I think, is that some people can get bogged down in that despair and think that there is no hope, but that you shouldn't get stuck there. You need to realize that every day you have an ability to make things better for yourself and the people around you, and to keep pushing to make that reality happen, because you always have that capability within you, and we're capable of a lot more than what we realize. I think it's the schooling system, it's the culture that makes you think that you're inherently not valuable as an individual, but you have a lot more power and you have a lot more capabilities than you really realize.
Yeah, there's unlimited potential, but there's no result without direction, without action, without setting aside some ego in order to learn some stuff, or yeah, like willingness to be humbled and all, and everything that we're taught eh, from public school or society at large, that it's unacceptable, asking for help or saying I don't know, or not taking an immediate stance in a hyper uh just clickbait driven society where you're like, hey, wow, some weird stuff happened, maybe we should wait a minute before we make a determination. You get attacked for that, rather than being like, it was, the freaking blue-haired trans Tifa mob in the living room with the candlestick, and I know it. And, I did. No, you don't. No, you don't. It's okay not to have 100% of the answers at all times. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to turn to your community or your family or whatever for some assistance and for some guidance. And we got so far away from that over the last several years that people really forgot how to do it.
You're right. You're right, Steve. We're so disconnected as people. We're so disconnected where we've had community that everybody worked together in the past and we're a lot more connected with each other. I was talking to one of my buddies. We do a show on Sundays where we talk about homestead and stuff. And one of the guys on our panel was telling us that when everybody stopped walking through the neighborhoods and hanging out on each other's porches, it was when AC came out and everybody started getting AC and they started staying inside, and where people would be hanging out on their porch on a hot day, hanging out and getting to know their neighbors and chatting and stuff. It became, we're inside and we're in front of the television. And
Yeah. There's a great Uncle Tupelo song called Screen Door that kind of encapsulates that sentiment very, very well.
that's another thing you do at the show is the music and all that kind of stuff. And you have a really good different selection of music that you play. How did you kind of cultivate some of the musical taste that you have? Like, I like a lot of the stuff that you play with especially Devil Makes Three, man. I gotta, where'd you hear about Devil Makes Three?
They lived right next to me in Bonnie Doon, California when they were first, kind of getting settled in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and went to an enormous amount of their shows just as a local band coming up. Was also blessed in the Santa Cruz Mountains with K-Pig Radio, which plays a very eclectic mix of stuff there. Grew up, pretty musically, I guess, inclined, and then had a bunch of older people in my life that, were turning me on to all kinds of different things as I was growing up. So it's always been a pretty broad spectrum. I also, because of the age that I am and the eras that I grew up in, grew up with the golden era of hip hop and like real punk rock and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just been a major factor of my life.
Yeah, that's great, man. I relate to music quite a bit, and I can't say enough about your show, Steve. I highly recommend everybody going and checking out Steve's morning show, Am Wakeup. I really think it is one of the best shows on the internet for the morning. And if you're got a job where you're working with your hands or something like that, turn on Steve in the morning, get caught up with stuff that's going on, and have a chill, uh, have some laughs, and hang out. So thanks for your time, Steve. I really appreciate you coming on, man. Where can everybody get tickets for the upcoming Third Eye Carnival? And where can people follow you, support you? How can everybody do all that?
So, thirdeyecarnival.com for tickets for that. That's October 17th through 19th, El Paso, Texas. Come out if you can. It's going to be awesome. Um, Everything else, I'm on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, Kick, Substack, all of it under AM Wake Up. You can find all of that there. Thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate the heck out of you, man. And I love how engaged you are and where you're trying to take the show and all the kind of conversations that it's so necessary. I dig the heck out of it. Um, and yeah, man, yeah, no, appreciate you having me on, and the time to kick it because we need to do that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Steve. Thank you so much again, man, for coming on. And yeah, I love to keep the relationship going and get you back on and keep plugging the Third Eye because I really believe in it, man. It's a really great event.
Heck yeah. No, me too, dude. It is. I'm very grateful for having T. Snyder to, twist my arm to get going on it and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I can't promote him enough. He's done a bunch of mini documentaries about a handful of people in the larger truth community, and some footage of a couple of different Third Eye Carnivals in those. So go check him out if you're not familiar with him. conspiracysynergy.com. Check out Tease. And yeah, dude, yeah, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Those mini docs are amazing. You guys got to go check those
They're
out.
really cool.
Conspiracysynergy.com, and he's got them on YouTube, I think under his T. Snyder, I think, account.
Yeah.
Yeah, go check him out. It's about all the people that are doing this kind of stuff and the events and the guys getting the information out. And he does a really excellent job with the mini docs, and they're really, really well done. So thank you so much, Steve. And folks, if you like this, please share it with somebody that could get value out of it and spread the word about the show and subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it.
Heck yeah. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Cheers.
Cheers.